Ending relationships, especially with family and friends, can feel like one of the hardest decisions you'll ever make. Society often tells us that blood is thicker than water, and we're encouraged to maintain friendships through thick and thin. But what happens when these relationships become toxic or detrimental to your well-being? Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do for yourself is to let go, even if it means cutting ties with those closest to you. This isn't a decision to be taken lightly, but staying in relationships that drain you emotionally, mentally, or physically can prevent you from living your best life. Here are 8 signs that it might be time to step away, even from family and friends. 1. Constant disrespect. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship. If someone constantly belittles, mocks, or dismisses your feelings, it's a clear sign of disrespect. For example, imagine sharing a personal achievement with a friend or family member, only for them to downplay it or mock your efforts. Over time, this behavior erodes your self-esteem and leaves you questioning your worth. Consider Julia's story. When she excitedly told her brother about her promotion, he rolled his eyes and said, "It's not like you're running a company or anything." Though she initially brushed it off, these comments became a pattern, making Julia feel that her successes were insignificant. She began to dread sharing her joys, knowing they'd be met with sarcasm or disdain. Address the issue directly. Explain how their actions make you feel and set clear boundaries. For example, you might say, "When you downplay my achievements, it makes me feel like my efforts don't matter. I'd appreciate it if you could celebrate with me instead." If the disrespect continues, it's a sign that they don't value you enough to change their behavior, making it necessary to consider cutting ties. 2. Emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulators use guilt, fear, or obligation to control you. They might make you feel responsible for their happiness or turn situations around to make themselves the victim. For instance, a family member might say, "After all I've done for you, how can you do this to me," when you're simply asserting your boundaries. Recognize the manipulation for what it is. Respond calmly but firmly, refusing to engage in their tactics. For example, you could say, "I care about you, but I can't take responsibility for your feelings. Let's work together to find a solution." If they persist in manipulating you, it may be time to step back from the relationship. 3. Lack of support. Healthy relationships are built on mutual support. If someone consistently dismisses your goals, discourages your ambitions, or is absent during your moments of need, it's a red flag. For example, a friend who only contacts you when they need something but disappears when you need help is not truly supportive. Consider David and Mark's friendship. David was always there when Mark needed advice or a favor, but when David faced a tough time at work, Mark was nowhere to be found. When David finally asked for support, Mark brushed it off, saying, "I've got my own problems to deal with." Over time, David realized the friendship was entirely one-sided. Take note of the imbalance. Communicate your feelings and observe their response. You might say, "I value our friendship, but I've noticed that support often feels one-sided. I'd like us to be there for each other equally." If their lack of support continues, it might be necessary to prioritize relationships that uplift and encourage you. 4. Toxic communication. Communication should foster understanding and connection. If your interactions are filled with sarcasm, passive aggressiveness, or outright hostility, it's a sign of toxicity. For instance, a family member who constantly interrupts you or invalidates your perspective creates an environment where you don't feel safe expressing yourself. Try setting boundaries around how you communicate. For example, say, "I'd like us to have calmer and more respectful conversations. Can we agree to listen to each other without interrupting?" If they're unwilling to engage respectfully, it's an indication that the relationship is not serving your well-being. 5. Consistent negativity. Negativity can be contagious. If someone in your life is perpetually pessimistic, critical, or draining, their energy can weigh heavily on you. For example, a friend who constantly complains without ever seeking solutions may leave you feeling emotionally exhausted after every interaction. Take Amanda's experience with her cousin Lily. Every time they spoke, Lily would rant about her life without pausing to ask about Amanda's. When Amanda tried to offer solutions, Lily would dismiss them, preferring to dwell in her complaints. Amanda began to notice how these interactions left her feeling drained and unhappy. Limit the time you spend with negative individuals and focus on building relationships with those who bring positivity and balance into your life. You might say, I want to support you, but I think we should also focus on solutions. Let's try to find some positives to focus on. If the negativity persists and affects your mental health, it might be time to let go. 6. Boundary violations. Boundaries are essential for maintaining healthy relationships. If someone repeatedly disregards your boundaries, whether it's showing up unannounced, prying into your personal life, or pressuring you to do things you're uncomfortable with, it's a serious issue. Reiterate your boundaries and emphasize their importance. For instance, say, I've mentioned before that I need some notice before visits. Please respect that. If they continue to cross the line despite your efforts, consider distancing yourself for your own well-being. 7. One-sided relationships. Relationships should be reciprocal, with both parties investing time and effort. If you find yourself constantly giving without receiving the same in return, it's a sign of imbalance. For instance, if you're always the one initiating plans or checking in, the relationship may be more about convenience for them than genuine connection. Reflect on the dynamic and communicate your feelings. Say, I've noticed that I'm often the one reaching out or making plans. It would mean a lot if you could take the initiative sometimes. If they're unwilling to meet you halfway, it's worth reconsidering the value of maintaining the relationship. 8. Impact on mental health. Perhaps the most critical sign is the toll the relationship takes on your mental health. If you feel anxious, stressed, or depressed after interacting with someone, it's a clear indication that the relationship is unhealthy. For example, a toxic family member who constantly criticizes or undermines you can significantly impact your self-esteem and emotional well-being. Prioritize your mental health. Seek support from a therapist or trusted confidant to help you navigate the situation. If cutting ties feels too drastic, consider creating distance or limiting contact to protect your peace. Conclusion. Letting go of relationships, especially with family and friends, is never easy. However, your well-being should always come first. By recognizing these 8 signs, you can make informed decisions about which relationships to nurture and which to release. Remember, it's okay to prioritize yourself and surround yourself with people who uplift, respect, and genuinely care for you. Life is too short to invest in relationships that don't add value to your journey.